This is The Writing Life. I'm Stephen W. Long, and my guest today is really a local celebrity, Ken Moore. Ken and I ran into each other just down the street here, and got to talking about writing and books and so on. And I learned that Ken is working on, I think, I don't know if this is going to be a series or not, but just kind of a fascinating approach to writing. And I invited Ken on the show, and here he is to join us.
Well,
so
great.
Welcome. Thank you.
It's great to be here, Steve. Thanks for being curious.
Yeah, I think it's terrific. A couple of things. So I'm going to have you introduce the name of the book, and then I want to talk to you about that.
Okay, well, the title is Babic Ahem, and there'll probably be a tagline on each story, maybe the one about the salmon, the one about the stars, the one about the bull.
Okay.
Babic Ahem.
Okay, so I want to back up a little bit. I had thought that I'd heard that term. Is that like an established fable, an established character, or did you make this up, or how did that come about?
I got the name driving by the restaurant in Dundee.
Okay.
I just thought, that's a cute name, Babica. And I think I noticed the name of the restaurant before I decided to tell stories about Babic Ahem.
Okay.
And Babic Ahem means grandmother in an Eastern European language.
Serbo-Croatian.
Thank you.
Yeah. Which I speak not at all except for that word. I looked it up.
Serbo-Croatian.
Yes.
Okay.
And Caroline, our producer, when I said that to her, she told me the Russian equivalent, which is very, very near.
Similar.
A lot of smart people around here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned something. I'm glad I came.
Yeah. So and you really that it was just the sound of the word that resonated with you.
Yeah.
You didn't know the history of Babic Ahem.
Well, the fact that it meant grandmother kind of fit in with what I was wanting to bring in the character.
Okay. So this is a great segue because now these are not yet written. You're outlining this story.
Well, not yet written. They've come to, the reason I started doing this was to tell stories at church.
Okay.
There's a segment at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of McMinnville before the kids go to Sunday school when they have story for all ages. And the kids come up in the front and while the congregation's still there, and they sit on a blanket, and the storyteller is charged with telling a story. And a lot of times people will read books and turn the pages and like that, but the idea is really to develop storytelling and appreciation for the children in just telling stories.
Sure.
So I thought, well, okay, if that's what they want, I like telling stories. Maybe I could write a few of my own stories. And so that's what motivated me to think, well, what would I write about? What would I talk to children about?
Okay. So the show is really about writing, and I want to ask you about your process of writing.
Okay.
But when you mention that, it makes me think the oral tradition, that's how stories have been passed on until really pretty recently. And it's so effective. I think when we hear these things, that it really becomes part of us. So I will ask you about your process.
Sure.
Do you write regularly? How does this come about?
It's pretty simple. Sunday is Babic Ahem Day.
Okay.
So on Sundays, even if I'm busy, I open the cloud on my drive to my Babica folder, and I have about 10 folders, each with a different story. And some are complete, that I've told them, I've polished them, I've told them at church. I feel like it's good. And then there's some that I have ready to go that I haven't told at church yet, so they haven't gotten the final polish. And then there's a few that I just have the title and maybe a few thoughts.
Okay.
And so I get that title in mind and where I want to go, and each story has a similar arc to it. So
I would think so. Now, when you pick these, people, in another genre, you could say, well, do the lyrics come first or do the melody come first? Okay, so in this case, I'm thinking, do you have a lesson that you want to impart, and then that motivates this story, or how does that come about?
Well, I haven't thought about that, but let's just take one of the early stories was Babic comes. It's in the winter, and she just decides she has come to teach the chicks how to ice skate.
Okay.
And it was kind of just for fun and adventure, this first story. But there was thin ice, an area of thin ice that she told them not to go. And Rusty Rooster, Master Rusty Rooster, doesn't always listen. He's often an instigator of an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And he fell through the ice. So he had to be rescued by Hannah, young Hannah Hen. And she organized the people, the other chicks, to get into a chain and get a stick and get Rusty out of the ice. So that was kind of an adventure that I wanted to just tell a fun story. I'll back up and say, about telling stories. When I was little, my dad would tuck me in and I'd say, "Tell me a story, Daddy."
Sure.
And looking back, I don't think I knew at the time that he was making it up as he went along. And they were often about a squirrel and his adventures in the treetops and in the wind. And so when I had children and they said, "Tell me a story, Daddy," I kind of, let's see, this mine often turned out to be about a chipmunk named Robbie. And I would make it up and go as I went along until I fell asleep. And the kids would...
Oh, you fell asleep,
I
not
would fall
the kids,
asleep,
right?
Because you're tired, you're lying down. And
sure.
And in the middle of the story, now my dad did this, and I did it too. We'd often, before he went to sleep, come out with some sort of silly non sequitur, just it's coming out of our brain, and we called it silly talk. And I would often erupt in laughter about what my dad had just talked about, some policeman on a corner as he was drifting off to sleep, and I would laugh, and he would wake up and what, and I'd tell him what he had said, and then he'd go on with the story. Well, when I went to sleep, my youngest was just very little. He couldn't talk real well because he was just 2 or something. He would say, "Eye up, Daddy, eye up." Mm-hmm. Wake up. So I'd get back to telling stories. So I was used to weaving a tale about a little animal to my kids. So I guess this is kind of just continuing that for the children.
But the history of fables are maybe morality tale is too strict of a word, but you're teaching. You want to teach them something.
Definitely, and it's not only morality, but definitely that. How I think of it as how to be in the world.
Okay.
What a child needs to be.
Stay off the thin ice. I've got that.
Right. And then also, I have some stories that are mostly about just the wonder of the universe.
Oh, great. And will that be Babic Ahem also?
Oh, definitely. It's all Babic. Babic, most of the story, all the stories so far have started that the chickens are just in the barnyard doing what they do, scratching and pecking and clucking, and one chicken looks up, and here comes Babic Ahem over the hill, and the cheer goes up, "Babic Ahem, Babic Ahem!"
Yeah.
And soon everybody's gathered at the center of the barnyard, and she walks in, and the story unfolds.
Okay, so I think in preparation for today, you were saying that Babic Ahem is sort of enigmatic, and this is in the chicken world. I mean, it sounds like she has a bit of a reputation.
Just locally, that the chicken, like enigmatic, meaning it's not well placed in time and space.
Okay.
And for these chickens, they just every once in a while she shows up they're not expecting her, and I kind of vision her as itinerant.
Sure.
And has taken on her life is to do what she does. What she does. In fact, one of the chicks asks Babic, Babic has talked about her age at some point, and Hannah wonders, well, who will be the next Babic?
Mm-hmm. Some emotion there.
Yeah. And so she replies, to Hannah, often one who asks.
Oh,
So how does this take place? Who knows?
sure.
But it's kind of a calling, I would say,
Uh-huh,
to be the Babic.
uh-huh. Are you maybe Babic a little bit?
That's, I do like to feel like that I can impart wonder, enjoyment of the wonder of the world.
Sure.
And help kids have stories in their mind that remind someone how to be.
Sure.
How to be in a certain situation. The one I'm working on now is the one about the bull. And I'm not going to use the word bully.
Oh, okay.
But the bull
Sure.
snorts and blows the chickens off the path and think that's funny. And
That's perfect.
when they're dusting themselves off, the bull says, I don't know why you chicks go to school. You just grow up to be dumb clucks. So it's real bullying, and it feels,
And it's really relevant.
yeah. So then the elements of how to respond to a bully, and then also I want to reach out and to the bully and have some healing done there, but the story's not done. So
Sure.
that's the one under development.
Well, I think that's wonderful. So I just love this. I really do. But for the moment, I want to concentrate on Babica. I think as the author, you've really set yourself up in a nice position because she is itinerant. So then she gets to go, she can bring these stories back. And if you talk about the wonders of the universe or whatever, maybe here I am making this up on the spot.
I'm all ears.
Yeah, if they are in a farm setting that we would recognize, and I think we bring our own history to whatever that is, but maybe she can go somewhere else and see how other people do things. Maybe the chicks in Asia see the world differently or whatever. And here's so if you, again, sort of in a technical way, when you're talking about point of view, how can you get this information to the audience in an organic way that they're going to believe it?
That's a struggle.
She can bring that
Right.
to her audience, which then now we're the audience.
Well, because of her travels, she has seen the world, and she's like somewhat mystical in that I don't think that there's much mystery to her about the world. That she is well traveled,
Right.
and has a maturity beyond most any maturity that we know, because she's automatically someone that people recognize as a mature,
Sure.
somewhat exalted, almost person, and that's how they view her. But I do have a story that they do travel on Eagle Air, and the eagle shows up,
Yeah.
and they're able to hold on to the eagle's wings, and they're going to actually travel to another place
Yeah.
and have an experience that will be very foreign to them, and open their eyes and
Sure.
in a way that I want the children to have that openness to new experiences, and then also to learn what the chicks learn.
Okay. So I love this hierarchy. To me, having just been introduced to this, Babic Ahem is kind of the mentor.
Yeah.
And it sounds like maybe Hannah is not the protagonist, but she's the one that the world is new to her and learning through her own experience, but really through Babic Ahem too.
And
The guidance.
Male-female counterpart there, girl-boy, Rusty is Master Rusty Rooster is often, he's not sure about these ducks that need shelter because their pond is dried up. We've never had ducks in our farmyard before.
Okay.
And then, so the other side often is, now in that story I introduced another character, Corto. Corto is one of the youngest chicks. And when he first meets Babica, she of course knows his name. Hi, Corto, you're very young. And he says, yes, I was born yesterday. And so it's Corto in this situation that wanders off during this confrontation between the ducks and the chickens, and starts playing duck, duck, goose with some of the ducks. He doesn't know that there's a conflict.
Right.
And then he's having a great time. Wee, look at us playing.
Sure.
And that kind of breaks the tension between someone who doesn't want change and someone who is open to change.
This is very Dr. Seuss, I think.
Ah.
No, seriously, the way that you break down barriers or introduce these barriers, these prejudices that we're confronting, and then that's the way to break them down. Yeah. I mean, you've seen on Facebook or something how kids of different races are holding hands, and the caption is prejudice is learned. It's not innate or intrinsic.
Yeah.
And Ken, so again, this is a little premature. You haven't. You're getting ready to do this. You've told some stories. How do you envision when the books come out?
Well, yeah, it's not a book, and it's kind of funny to have me on the writer show when I'm a storyteller. But my wife, Christy, has written a book called The Boy Who Learned Upside Down.
Okay.
And it is a picture book, which is a genre that I learn about, where there's a few words, maybe a paragraph on a page, mostly illustration, and there's no chapters.
Sure.
She wrote this, and it's a story basically of her son and his struggle with learning disabilities.
Oh.
And as a result of his experiences, she began something called the Shadow Project, which helps, which assists special education teachers to motivate the kids in the classroom. It's been very successful in Portland and here in McMinnville. So she wrote this book, and I was part of that process. So, and the funny thing was, we wrote a book, we thought it was great, we took it out to be published. The publisher said, yeah, but you've got to rework some things. One word is the same from what we submitted. Not that the story changed, but the approach, the one sentence stayed out of from the first draft to the last. And then she got an illustrator, and so I saw that process happen. And so she's very excited about that process.
Okay.
I started telling stories, and she says, I think this would make a great book. I can visualize this picture. I see this on this page. And I've said, great. Let me get 10 stories, and then we'll start to pursue. But I don't want to get so involved in the next step that I don't
That you miss this step.
That I don't focus. Focus on this.
Oh, I think that's smart.
And we're having a great time doing it. Like I said, it's Babic Ahem day for both of us. We sit and we just kick back and forth ideas.
As I understand children's books, or maybe any illustrated book, when you go to the publisher, they don't want you to have your own illustrator.
That's
they want
right.
To supply the
that was a
illustrator.
big surprise to me.
Yeah.
They get that for you. However, Steve, I'm hungry to have a book. And if I get a local illustrator that wants to play with me, and I know it's probably they might want some payment to draw some pictures for me, but it's going to be just in a way that we can put together, we can staple together our own book, and I'm just hungry to have that for the fun of it. And then maybe there's a self-publish, and maybe then there's the big publisher process.
Sure.
So if all the illustrations that are done, if I start on a path of getting illustrations, I'll understand that at some point they all just may be set aside, and a whole new illustration comes to pass.
There are so many options now. I mean, it's just terrific that you can do that you can want this thing and then realize it can happen. And it's also somewhat intimidating because, as you said, there's so many ways to go. Traditional publishing is, obviously, we still do that.
A difficult path.
Well, it can be, but I think that it's also confusing. So we'll digress just a minute here. So if you talk about a typical publishing, 30 years ago, there were the established publishers. If you sold your book, and then you had a marketing budget, and kind of you might have to show up for a signing, but they kind of did the work. And I think now maybe the very most established, most popular authors, maybe that's still true for them. But for most, even if you go with a traditional publisher, you're going to do your own promotion, you're going to set the stuff up, you're going to carry that burden. So that's changed as well.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, and this is for I guess we'll eventually put this on YouTube, and so who knows who's going to see it. We're in McMinnville, Oregon. In Portland, Oregon, there's a place called Powell's Books. So now you know where I'm going with this. You can email your file to Powell's Books, and days later, and I mean 1, 2, 3 days later, you'll have that book in the mail. It'll be a book done.
Oh, wow.
And there may be others. I'm sure there are others. But when I did my book, on a Sunday night, I emailed them my file. Tuesday afternoon, I had books in the mail.
Wow.
And so, and I did what's called a reader's advanced reader copy, an ARC. And I passed this out to get quotes then for the real publication, and you know, little blurbs in the back.
Yeah.
But the way that I did that was to send it to Powell's. And we have, you know, Gail Anderson in Newburgh. You're in Newburgh? No, you're in Yamhill?
I live in Yamhill.
And, but lots of people have that capability now. So you talk about stapling it together, you can certainly do that. But, but there are places that you can get a pretty good book.
Yeah.
And that's a kick. That's fun.
Well, I am excited to have that thought that maybe that people would be loving to read this book to their kids, or kids would be loving to look.
Sign me up.
Yeah,
I'll take 'em.
That really lights me up.
Yeah.
That would be so much fun if that happened. But like I said, I started with a storytelling kind of idea, and there's not much follow-on in storytelling like there is in publishing and selling a book.
Well, it's different.
Yeah.
I mean, now the age group that you're aiming at is what?
Well, that's a good question. I would say that, you know, some of the kids that are listening to the stories at church are just in their mom's lap. Their mom comes up on and
Sure.
is holding them, so they're just looking at me like wondering where am I?
Sure.
To those kids that are just feel like they're almost too old to be sitting on the floor.
Okay.
And they want to stay in their chair because they've hit that age when they're not little kids anymore.
Yeah, but I'll bet they're listening. No, seriously,
Of
to this.
course.
Yeah.
So that's kind of who I'm aiming at, and so I would say from those that can hear a story, which are two or three,
Right.
Up to, kids stop coming up to the front about the time they're, I don't know, 10.
Okay.
But I think I'm a little ignorant about my target. I really haven't been given that sophisticated thought.
You know, Stephen King says that you should visualize your ideal reader. And I've talked to some people who say, well, my ideal reader is me. You know, I want to write something that I want to read. So that's one. Other
That's
people,
good advice for me.
Other people have other. Maybe it's a real person, or maybe it's an idealized reader, is their ideal reader. But so you might think about that.
Well, after I tell a story, I might want to talk to some of the kids that heard it and see how they reacted. And if I find an age that kind of seems to be resonating, they've understood it, and yet it doesn't seem too, young for them, then maybe that's my ideal age.
Yeah. When you were talking about storytelling is, these aren't your words, but it sounded like less follow-up. You tell the story and you're done. And
Yeah, there's not you don't have to go look for a publisher. You just
well, that's
need
true.
a few kids to tell a story to.
But what I was thinking was, because they're there, they're physically present, I wonder if you're not going to get questions. Well, where does she go next?
Yeah.
How did she get here? That kind of thing. And then so there is some follow-up in that regard.
Yeah, and I try to anticipate readers' questions. Are there humans? And so far,
great.
I've been able to avoid that. And technology, the ice skates were just simply sharp rocks that she had that the chicks could hold in their claws, and
I love it.
those,
Yeah.
that she had collected and that they were in the right shape. Yeah, and other animals, this, I've had a duck now, and there's going to be a bull, but I don't think there's going to be humans in this world, which is tricky. It's hard to go in and explore history without acknowledging humans, but I do have one where oh, one of the chicks is feeling kind of small in the world. And so Babic is going to talk about how back when the earth was first formed,
Yeah.
that there was this, she's going to answer the question, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Oh boy.
And the answer is the egg. Because out of the stardust condensed
Okay.
a beautiful egg.
Yeah.
And on that egg, from that egg was hatched dinosaurs, Tyrannosaurus rex.
Uh-huh.
And over the ages, that dinosaur evolved, and it's obvious when you look at a Tyrannosaurus and you look at a chicken.
Oh, wouldn't that be fun? Yeah.
No, Steve.
Oh, no, I'm with you.
Dinosaurs are chickens are the modern dinosaur, the
Right.
modern Tyrannosaurus rex.
Yeah.
You know, the claw, the
The
shape.
bone and, yeah.
So in this way, I've been able to explore a little bit about history without introducing humans. And in this story, then, Rusty's stamping around and acting like a Tyrannosaurus rex, but he attracts the attention of the cat, and that's a whole nother adventure.
You're onto something, man. I love this. It's great. It's great.
having
I'm
fun.
really so excited for you.
Yeah, thank you.
And my certainly my kids, but my grandkids are a little bit beyond that. But man, sign me up. I wanna get on your list.
Well, it's just fun to have something to do with Christy, that we both love this.
Sure.
And she supports me in this so much. She's always asking me what's next with
Oh, yeah.
Babic. And so and looking forward to telling the kids' stories.
Yeah.
It's just a joy to me right now.
I love this. When you get a little farther down the line, maybe bring us something to read. If you get some illustrations, let's do this again.
I'm hoping for that day.
Thank you, sir. Just terrific. I love it.
Thank you.
Folks, that's it for us. Ken, do you have a website that they can look at?
You know, about Babic, I don't.
Okay.
But
all right. Well, we'll get there.
that's a good idea.
Okay. I have a website, stephenwlong.com. Send me an email. Let me know who you'd like to, maybe you have a suggestion for a topic or a guest. We'd love to do that. Again, eventually this will be on YouTube. And we'll see you next time on The Writing Life. Thank you.
What do you think? We done?
I don't know, you guys wanna do one just with yourself without me doing the
we're
longest?
done, if
No,
they got
no.
enough, they got enough.
They got enough? Probably, okay, sounds good.
Let's go lunch.
Oh.
I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can just bite too.